Good morning. As China's making deals in the Middle East, the United States is making threats in Africa. Let's talk. Well, once again, we see big things going on in the world, and the U.S. is doing things the way they do them, and other countries are doing things the way they do them. As my dad used to always say, children don't listen, they watch and learn. Now, I use that analogy with children, but that's not to argue that the world is children in comparison to the US or Russia and China to have be some kind of a hierarchical statement. I'm simply saying when people are sitting on the outside watching those with power, they observe how they wield that power, how they use that power. Do they use it in a coercive manner? Do they use that in a way that belittles or restricts those that have less power? Do they view those who have less power as inferior? Or do they treat others as equal? So what's happened recently, we're going to go to talk briefly about what happened in the Middle East. And then we're going to go to what the U.S. is doing in Africa. So let's start here. To put things in context, China goes to the Middle East. Now, one of the things that China and Russia, the Eurasian coalition, we'll call it, has argued. They've called them. They've compared their vision of a world order. The U.S. being the rules-based international order, or U.S. completely and totally United States dominated international order that uses coercion and violence to control others, to restrict others, and to prey on others in many instances, including their own citizens. That's the way I view it. You may view it differently. So that's the rules-based international order. It's simply to sum it up, it's a hierarchy, and the U.S. is at the top of the hierarchy. That's it. Meanwhile, the Eurasian-based order, which would be Russia and China, probably at the top, and you got to add India, Saudi Arabia. There's a number of powerful countries, Iran in that. Also, the three countries that are probably at the forefront of that, which would be Iran, Russia, and China, also conveniently just happen to be the three countries in the crosshairs of U.S. imperialism at this time. So U.S.-led imperialism. So these countries are the ones who are pushing for a new world order, who are, in fact, at the forefront of creating a new world order. And they happen to also be the countries that the United States are all threatening to attack and go to war with. So basically, the people on the outside see four world powers. Iran, you could call them more of a regional power, and they see that one of them is saying, I might have to attack and go to war with the other three, and the other three are saying we need a world order where people don't attack and go to war with each other to maintain domination. Kind of speaks for itself, doesn't it? All right, so let's talk about that. So what happens is China goes to the Middle East, and look, you've heard me say it a million times. You are what your record says you are. The U.S. is going around. Recently, Ned Price said, oh, can I find this? This was great. Let me find this. State Department Ned Price on the Middle East, and he said, quote, listen to this. He's a U.S. State Department spokesman. He said, no country on earth has done more to build a more stable, more integrated region. So his claim is that no one has done more, no country on earth has done more to bring a more stable and integrated region. Now, you notice he didn't use the word peace. He couldn't possibly use the word peace, but let's talk about that stability. And that would be, they overthrew the country of Iran in 1953. They overthrew Libya violently. They overthrew Iraq violently. They've been a party to various attacks on Iran via their proxy Israel, such as murdering scientists. Recently, there was protests that the U.S. was all over. There were terrorist attacks in Iran that the U.S. was part of. So they've been part of a violent kind of undercover dirty war against Iran. It's just that Iran's too powerful to for them to overtake a country of that size and economic and military might. Syria, the U.S. prosecuted a dirty war against Syria using uh, um, jihadist proxies. Let's not forget the jihadist proxy situation started in Afghanistan in the late 1970s under Jimmy Carter, going after the Russians, trying to, so-called draw them into Afghanistan. So the U.S. has created violence, instability, and jihadist organizations, funded and trained them, brought them all over the world in the region. So to argue that the U.S. created stability, excuse me, as Ned Price says, no country on earth has done more to build a more stable, more integrated region, is preposterous. And the world looks at that and says, you got to be kidding me, So China goes in there and says, okay, well, that's what you say. Those are your words. Fine. It's like a man can be married to a woman. He can beat her every day. He can mistreat her. He can call her names. He can abuse her. And then he can say, nobody would ever treat you better than me. Well, yeah, okay, he can say that. That's his words. But your action speaks louder than words. And as I've also heard this, what you're doing is so loud, I can't hear what you're saying. What you're doing is speaking so loud, I can't hear what you're saying. All right, let's go to Africa. And let's find if I can find it. Okay, give me a second here. So what's going on? The U.S. Oh, here we go. Let me share this with you. So the U.S. is saying, now remember, we believe in fairness, stability, independence, and sovereignty, right? Independence and sovereignty. You can't attack an independent sovereign nation. The United States protects democracy, independence, and sovereignty. Is that correct? Right? Well, let's look at this. Malaysia Times. U.S. Africa Command General Michael Langley has said that the U.S., listen to this, can't let China open a naval base in Western Africa. The general did not publicly state where such a base might be located, but said that it would place China at an advantage over the U.S. Now, let's start here. The U.S. has bases all over Africa that they call AFRICOM, and General Michael Langley is the AFRICOM commander. So he says, we got bases all over Africa. We got 30 military bases in the Middle East alone. But China can't have a base in Western Africa. Now, China has one base in Djibouti, which is at the mouth of the Red Sea. And what he says is, okay, we got bases all over Africa. We got full command of Africa militarily. We can attack and bomb anybody we want. We got Africa. We got bases surrounding China. We got bases surrounding Russia. We got bases surrounding North Korea. We got bases surrounding Iran. We got bases surrounding everybody. Africa bases everywhere. But China can't, the U.S., listen to this, can't let China open a naval base in Western Africa. Now, let's go further. Is there only one country in Western Africa? There's a number of countries in Western Africa. The U.S. believes in independence and sovereignty, right? We're Ukraine. Oh, you can't attack an independent sovereign nation. We believe in independence and sovereignty, blah, 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 blah. But when it comes to Africa, that's a continent. That's not a country. It's made of multiple countries. And the U.S. general says all of those countries are irrelevant. We see it as a continent, and it's our continent. And the people on the continent of Africa have no say. We can't let another power come in to this continent. It's our continent. Screw these people. Who do they think they are? They think they have a right to decide who they will allow in their country? No, they don't. They think they are going to say, well, my country of whatever, Mali, you name it. My country has decided that we'd like to let China come in. No, sorry, you can't do that. And here's my question. What are we going to do? Well, how could we possibly stop them if the country of you name it says we're building a base, China's building a base, and the U.S. says no, you can't do it, and they go, yeah, well, duly noted, we're doing it. What are you going to do? What if you say, well, then we're going to sanction you, and they say, duly noted, we're still building it? What are they going to do? Military attack? Wait, no, we can't possibly do that because Ukraine, the United States opposes using military, using coercive violence to violate the independence and sovereignty of a sovereign and independent nation. No, we couldn't possibly do that, could we? Or could it be that what's happening now is the liars are being exposed? And so, bottom line is this: the United States is being exposed right here. Speaking at a hearing of the Senate Armed Service Committee on Thursday, Langley said that he would not discuss the details of China's alleged plans. However, he stated that a Chinese naval base on the Atlantic coast of Africa would change the whole calculus of protecting the U.S. homeland on Africa, all the way on the other side of the world. China can build a base there, all the way up, halfway across, all the way to the other side of the Atlantic. But here's the thing about it. But it ain't your country to decide, is it? Now, the United States says, listen to this. We currently are pumping weapons into Ukraine on Russia's border. We can do that because Ukraine's an independent sovereign nation. We are currently pumping weapons into Taiwan, which is even we recognize as part of China, as a province of China. So the U.S. says we can pump weapons into Ukraine because it's a sovereign nation on the, but it happens to be on the border of Russia, but we can do that. What about Taiwan? It's actually part of China. Yes. You recognize it's part of China? Of course, it's part of China. We recognize it's part of China. Who wouldn't recognize that as part of China? Okay. Can you pump weapons in there? Of course. But the United, yes, we can. We can pump weapons into Ukraine. We can pump weapons in. We can build bases. We got bases all around China, all around Russia. Anywhere, sure. All right, China wants to build a base in Africa. Oh, how could we possibly protect the homeland? That's unacceptable. Will not be allowed. No. The world can see you. The world can hear you. China goes into a country in Africa and says, we're building roads, we're building this, we're building that, we're trading with you, buying things, we're selling you things, we're doing things, we're making your life better off. And it's your decision. It's your decision. And the country says, and then China says, hey, we'd like to build a base there. And the country says, hey, good idea. The US, oh, no, you're not. That's our continent. And nobody builds a base in our continent. How hypocritical is that? How ridiculous is that? Geostrategically, geostrategically, it would place them at an advantage, Langley told the committee. Right now, we have a decisive advantage. We can't let them have a base on the West Coast, as it would change the dynamics. So they talked about Equatorial Guinea and Angola. And the Equatorial Guinea president apparently said, the vice president said, China is a model of a friendly country and strategic partner, but for now there's no such agreement for a base. He says, remember also that Equatorial Guinea is a sovereign and independent nation and can sign cooperation agreements with any friendly country. And the United States simply says, no, you are not sovereign. No, you are not independent. The U.S. empire does not recognize sovereignty and independence. Doesn't recognize it. We grant sovereignty and independence as a privilege to those that we choose. And even that is a conditional sovereignty and independence. You're sovereign and independent in so much as you do what the hell we tell you when we tell you. Otherwise, we'll kill you and overthrow your government. Well, let me put it to you like this, my friends. That's neither sovereignty nor independence, is it? So they're being exposed for who they are. Let's see. And so they say China established its first overseas base in 2017, opening a facility in the East African nation of Djibouti. U.S. officials have since claimed that Beijing is planning similar bases in 14 countries, including 2, Equatorial Guinea and Angola on Africa's west coast. Well, here's the bottom line. You got 800 bases. See, that is, people say, Garland, why do you use that word imperialism and U.S. empire? That is the empire. The empire says we own the world. We decide who can do what, where. And right now, China can't do anything anywhere. Let me show you something. Let me show you something while we're at here. U.S. won't rule out military. Watch this. Islands. I'm going to show you something. Watch this. Here's one. There we go. U.S. won't rule out military action if China establishes a base in the Solomon Islands. Hmm. Ambassador Daniel Crittenbrink warned security pact presents potential regional security implications. One of the most senior officials in the Pacific has refused to rule out military action against Solomon Islands if it were allowed to allow China to establish a military base there, saying the security deal between the countries presented potential regional security implications. Uh, We want to outline for our friends in the Solomons what our concerns are. Wait a minute. We won't rule out military actions if China establishes a base. We want to outline for our friends in the Solomons. Of course, we have respect for the Solomons Islands sovereignty, but, and as John Conyers once said to me, whenever somebody says but, that means ignore everything they said before that word. We also wanted to let them know that if steps were taken to establish a de facto permanent military presence, power projection capabilities, or military installation, that we would have significant concerns and we would very naturally respond to those concerns. Pressed on whether he would rule out the prospect of the U.S. taking military action against Solomon Islands were a naval base to be established, and if not, whether he was comfortable with Australia. The Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison's talk of the base being a red line for Australia, he says, I don't have a lot to add beyond what we've already stated. So he says, we have respect for the Solomon Islands sovereignty. U.S. won't rule out military action if China establishes a base in the Solomon Islands. So we now know two things. The United States says, you, China, can't build a base in Western Africa, not in Equatorial Guinea. Now, the people of Equatorial Guinea say, well, we can't allow them if we want to. And the U.S. says, no, you can't. We'll kill you. Solomon Islands, 7,341 miles from the United States shores. The U.S. says, we're going to have to draw a red line there, man. Oh, really? Can Russia draw a red line on their border with Ukraine? Absolutely not. Are you kidding me? What are they, madman? Ukraine's an independent, sovereign and democratic nation. It's absurd for Russia to think that they could tell Ukraine that the U.S. and NATO can't build bases and put missiles and build all kind of military infrastructure, pointing at them on their border. Well, that's ridiculous. While Putin's just a psychotic, insane madman to do such a thing. Oh, really? Well, what if China in their region in the Pacific wants to build a base on the Solomon Islands? We'll kill everybody on the damn Solomon Islands. Everybody will blow the hell out of the Solomon Islands. Those poor bastards are dead, every last one of them. Let's face it, the Solomon Islands doesn't have a military. So military action against them ain't going to be real hard, is it? They don't have a military. They got a few policemen running around with hats and shorts on because it's really, really nice. So what you're saying is, we are in charge of Africa, the African countries. Those are dark people. They don't really have, the right to decide what they want to do. What about the people in the Solomon Islands? Well, they're just as dark as the people in Africa. You kidding me? You think we're going to let them make decisions for themselves? We'll kill those bastards, every last one of them. So China can't build a base in Africa because the U.S. is in control of Africa. That would give them an advantage. And besides, there's no independence and sovereignty for Africa. Oh, okay. Well, clearly the Pacific region, the Solomon Islands, is right off the coast of China. I'm sure they can build it. No, are you kidding me? That's a red line. You're getting a little too close. That's a damn near, you're upwards of 7,300 miles from the U.S. coast. We got to draw a line there. Well, what about China drawing a red line on Taiwan on their border? No red lines for them. How about Russia drawing a red line on their border in Ukraine? No red lines for them. We got them surrounded in bases. This is our world, man. This is our world. You're just a squirrel trying to get a nut, as they say. No, I'm sorry. The world has had enough of that. The world's looking at you. That's why Saudi Arabia, that's why these countries are signing deals with other people. They're looking at you and they're saying you're out of your minds. Yeah, and what they're looking for is this: a fair world order. They want China to come in and say, look, man, let's make a deal. Let's make a deal. Behind door number 3, we got money. Behind door number 2, we still got money. What do you want, 3 or 2? Take either one because there's money behind the door. And you know what these countries are going to say? We'll take door number 2 and 3 if we can get our hands on it. So now in Saudi Arabia, did China come in there and say we're drawing red lines? They didn't come with a red marker to draw red lines around your country. Well, we're sorry you can't do this or that with Iran. Well, sorry you can't do this or that with the UAE. They did the opposite. They said there isn't any red lines. Everybody, let's work this thing out together. Let's get a peaceful agreement. And now Saudi Arabia is saying we're going to invest in Iran, and the world's saying, whoo, man. Because weeks ago, people were like, oh my God, the U.S. is going to attack Iran, these bastards. So the U.S. now is like, Lindsey Graham, we should attack Russia. McCarthy and these guys, wait, we're at war with China. The Israel people, hey, war with Iran, that's the way to go. Think about this. The mad crazies in our country are like, should we attack China? No, we got to attack Russia. Boo. They're going to get in a fight. They're going to be literally killing each other. They're going to duel it out with a pistol and swords. I say we must fight, attack Iran. No, China. No, Russia. Oh, yeah, I'll kill you. Boom. And they'll all be laying dead, fighting over who to attack. And meanwhile, China's sending some guys in with business suits saying, guys, let's work out a deal, and everybody's got to eat, right? You want to make money? Yeah, you want to make money? Yeah, we're all trying to eat, bro. We're just trying to eat. Sign right here, and we'll all eat. That's what's going down. Now, how does the U.S. play the game? I got to get into this. There's something I got to get into, and that is the cynical use of minorities to achieve their evil deeds. Watch this. Let's I'm going to share some things. I'm going to go down. I'm going to go down. Watch this. A couple of things. And you might not have thought of this. Tomahawk missile, right? The Tomahawk missile is an intermediate range subsonic cruise missile, which you use to blow the hell out of minorities around the world. Yeah. What do you use the time? Well, we attack Muslims with it. Solomon Islands, got to blow them up. What the heck? Tomahawk. That sounds good, doesn't it? Let's try another one. Just to show you something. Just to run something by you. Look at this. Isn't that awesome? You know what that is? AH-64 Apache helicopter. Gee, who are the Apaches? They were people who were genocided by the United States. Genocided. So the U.S. is going around the world telling people, hey, man, look, we're here to do good. We got a rainbow flag, a Black Lives Matter mask. And what are you going to do? We'll kill you. We'll use Apache helicopters. We'll use Tomahawk missiles. How cynical to name these things after Native Americans. Let me show you something. Let me find it. Let me show you something. Let me show you something. In the United States, you go on a Native American, where the Native Americans live on their reservations. This, my friend, is you might as well call it a lean-to on a Native American. This is the kind of poverty when you go on a Native American reservation. Poverty, basically third world poverty. 30% of the people on some of these reservations, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think 30% of the Native Americans on reservations don't have running water. And you know what that means? That means you have more illness and disease. That's one of the things that has caused that has lowered illness and disease. Running water, sanitation, bathroom, things of that nature. That's how they get treated. That's what the Native Americans are going to get from the United States Empire. But they're going to name the Apache helicopter. They're going to name the Tomahawk cruise missile. But they don't give them enough money to buy one Apache helicopter and one Tomahawk cruise missile. They don't need Apache helicopters and Tomahawk cruise missiles. They don't need symbolism of empire, of violence, of war, of murder named after them. Why doesn't the United $120 billion going to the Nazis in Ukraine? how much would it cost the U.S. to go into these reservations? A lot of these reservations, what the U.S. did was they made treaties with the Native Americans. All right, you move here and we'll do this and that for you, and we'll give you good land. And they put them on the worst land where you couldn't, as my dad would say about a garden, you couldn't raise an argument on this land. They pollute the water. They put uranium and radiated crap on their Yucca Mountain on their land. They do all these terrible things to them. But you know what they're going to get? They're going to get a Tomahawk cruise missile named after them, and they're going to get an Apache helicopter named after them. How cynical is that? Okay. Oh, wait a minute. Let's keep going. Something else I want to show you. This is... Here we go. How about this? This is great. The next America-class amphibious assault to be named Fallujah. I'm sure the Muslim world's thrilled about that. Well, let's see. What do we know about Fallujah? The United States went into Fallujah. First of all, they illegally invaded a Muslim country based on lies, slaughtered people like dogs all over the country, then occupied their country, stole their resources for, I don't know, still occupying their country, won't leave, illegal occupation of the country. Fallujah is a city where the U.S. went in and pretty much just bombed like they always do and killed everybody. And to this day, one of the issues in Fallujah is children being born with all these birth defects. Why? Because the United States used depleted uranium rounds when they shot at things. And so, of course, there's uranium, there's radiation all over the place in Fallujah. So you got all of these people being born. And so the U.S. is going to name our amphibious ship Fallujah. You know what? No wonder the Saudis and the Iranians and everybody else are signing deals. They're like, hey, man, he's bringing people out of their minds. I don't have none of that. Now, let's continue to look at what we got to look at. Okay, so the U.S. says to the U.S. says, the AFRICOM says, we run Africa, we control Africa, Africa is all ours. We love Africa, but sorry, Africa, you are under our control. If we're straight gangster, we're gangsters, man. You cannot allow China to have a base. Well, that means you have no sovereignty, right? Because you cannot allow, the United States will decide where bases can go. They told the Solomon Islands, any bases will kill you. Now they're saying that the Africans is not happening. What do you think? How do you think they'll react? By slaughtering Africans, because that's what they wonder why the world is turning towards Russia and China. Now let me show you the cynical use of minorities. I started with the Apache and with the Fallujah Muslims with the Tomahawk missile. Now let's look at something else. Who is the general? Who is this general that is in charge of AFRICOM now, the Africa Command? Let's look at him. This dude right here. What do? Here's a guy. This is the guy that they send to Africa. This is the guy, just like Lloyd Austin, right? That they send him and he's like, hey, man, hey, we need you to be in charge of whipping the Africans, of beating the slaves. You know, let me tell you, I'm sure, you know, you've heard of the term capo in the Jewish community. You've heard probably maybe the term in the Black community in the United States, the term is Uncle Tom. And what does that mean? It comes from a book by Harriet Beecher Stowe called Uncle Tom's Cabin. Now, people will make this statement, and validly so, that in the book, Uncle Tom was Uncle Tom's Cabin. Uncle Tom was a good guy and he was a hero, right? True. But the term has changed in meaning today. So now the term Uncle Tom in the Black community means someone who is Black, who is betraying people in their own kind. You know, a lot of people in when it comes to governments, right? One of the terms that's used in governments is a quisling government. That comes from Norway, right? That is a government who acts on behalf of occupiers, a government who acts on behalf of people who are mistreating the group, right? A turncoat. In the U.S., there's a story of a guy named Benedict Arnold in the during the Revolutionary War, as they call it. And so that's the same kind of thing. Well, that's an old trick. It's an old trick. You take somebody from that group, a cynical old trick, and you use that person as a human shield. So then you say, well, we can't be acting in a racist manner against the Africans. Look at this, as we would say in the Black community in America, look at this Uncle Tom right here. Because that's what he is to us. That's what he is in the Black community. A man who says, I'm going to go to Africa on behalf of Joe Biden, a guy who hung around. He was proud of the fact that he hung around with segregationists like Strom Thurmond and Senator Eastman and people of that nature. A guy, Joe Biden, with a horrific record on his treatment of minorities and racial issues. Horrific, worse than, I mean, just a long, horrible record of it. And now what does he do? He goes and gets this dude and he says, hey, man, I need you to go tell the Africans something. What? Kiss my ass. That's what I need you to tell them. I need you to tell them to shut up and do what they're told. And if they don't, we'll kill them. That they have no authority. They have no authority to run their own country. They have no independence. They have no sovereignty. See, that's the way the game is played. Let me show you something else. Let's keep going down that line. We're going to keep doing that a little bit. Let's look here. Let me show you how the game's played. Objectives in Latin America, according to Southcom. Remember, we just showed you the person in charge of AFRICOM, a Black man, and his job is to tell the Africans, shut the hell up or we'll kill you. We're taking your stuff. We're here. We're gangsters. We're thugs. We're common street hoodlums and criminals. I'm here on behalf of Biden. I'm here on behalf of Blinken, and they are thugs, hoods, and criminals. And I'm speaking for them because I look like you. And maybe that'll soften the blow. It doesn't matter because the blow's coming either way. You got no independence and sovereignty. But my job is to come here as a representative to mistreat people that look like me. Well, here we go. Southcom. We got to stand up for minorities. And so we now have a general in charge of Southcom. That's Latin America. You know, the place where the U.S. does genocides, where they since, what is it, 1824, we've had the Monroe Doctrine, which means that the people of Latin America, which means the indigenous people have no independence and sovereignty, and we own it. Right. Well, let's see. I wonder who the general in charge of that. Oh, what do you know? General Laura Richardson. Yes, sirree. Good old, look at her. She's there to tell the Latin Americans we got a female general, and she's there to beat the living hell out of you. And what did she say? Why is Latin America important? That's what she said, right? The common denominator of the inventory all highlights from the rich resources and rare earth elements, right? And she goes on to say, the military official who visited the country last year highlighted first and foremost the lithium triangle, a strategic area shared by Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile. 60% of the world's lithium is found in the triangle, she said, and said Richardson, and added that this element is necessary for today's technology. A few hours after the video became known, Bolivia's former president, Evo Morales, responded on his Twitter account, we remind the head of the U.S. Southern Command, Laura Richardson, that Latin America is not her backyard or her hacienda to exploit natural resources. What do you know? Look at here, look at here. How's the game played, right? That's how the game's played. That's how the game's played. The game is played like this. When you want to mistreat, when you want to abuse and mistreat the people in Latin America and rob them blind, bingo, there you go. Now, oh, well, we got a bunch of people in Africa and they need to be abused. They need to be mistreated too, for God's sake. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to mistreat the people? Oh, there you go. We got old Tom here. He's going to shuffle on over to Africa and tell the African people they better stay in their place or boss man, Mr. Biden is going to come kill them all. But Biden ain't really going to kill them all. You see, my job is to kill them all. I am the boss man here in Africa. So I'll come here and I will kill you and slaughter Africans like there's no tomorrow. All Joe Biden's got to do is give me the order because, hey, you know, we've got a minority in charge of AFRICOM and South. Do you notice what we would call maybe a pattern here, right? That's the game, man. Let's keep going. I don't think. Here we go. And there we go. What do you know? Rachel Levine, our first trans general of something or other, right? You notice a pattern here? You notice a pattern here, right? There's all the military garb. There's everything, you know. Do you notice a pattern here? The pattern is, do you notice the pattern is the US empire? The US empire says, look, um, I can use females, I can use people of color, as they say. It used to be black people, used to be Native Americans, and used to be all kinds of people. And now they're just of color. That's good enough. Of color, right? We can use people of color, and we can use trans people. We can use all of these various people of various genders and races and all this kind of stuff. And that tells you the truth about it when you see what we're doing. What we're really doing is the same thing. And because it's all a game. Here's the way it works. We got neoliberal policies, we got neoconservative policies, we got a brutal and vicious and violent imperialism that we're going to prey on countries around the world with. And people are like, well, that's not very nice. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to use a black person to do the same policies. I don't know about that. A trans person. Yeah, well, but still the policies are, okay, then we're going to send a woman, a Muslim, a Native American, an Inuit Eskimo. It's like that's the game. How can I give you the same policies, but find a minority person to use as a human shield, right? To say, look, when you say I'm not in favor of your policies to kill the Muslim people, to rob the black people, to force whatever I'm going to force on you, then I just put a person of whatever minority status out. And then when you say I'm not in favor of those policies, do you then say, well, you're attacking the person of minority status? And you're like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I don't even know anything about their minority status. A lot of times, people won't even know who this guy Langley is. Who the hell knows who the general in charge of AFRICOM? Until I showed you who knew. Or the general in charge of Southcom, Southern Command. Who the hell knew? Did anybody watching that? Until I looked it up, I didn't know, right? I happened to run into this stuff accidentally looking through, on my daily search through the news. So who really knows? So the truth is, people don't know that. But the game is played because you don't even know. You're like, well, I oppose our policies in Africa. Ah, you're a racist. Why? Well, here's a picture of the general. Well, what's that have to do with the policies? Yeah, but you're attacking him because he's a minority or something like that. It's just a game. It has nothing to do really with, is it helping him? Nah, he's just another imperialist, violent guy who imposes violence on the world. Is it helping the African people? No, not helping them, because we're robbing them of their right to make independent, sovereign decisions in the best interest of their nation. Is it helping black people here in America? No, not. How's it help me? How's it help not just me? I'm a middle class guy. How does it help a poor black person? How does it help a Native American who 30% of them don't have running water on their reservations? How does it help them to name a helicopter that we use to slaughter people, the Apache, or to name a missile that we use to bomb the hell out of children and weddings, to name it a Tomahawk? It doesn't help them. It's symbolic bull crap that is used to keep the liberals happy. To see, it's a game. The liberals that want to feel like they're doing the right thing. They're going to go along with war. They're going to go along with imperialism. They're going to go along with this stuff, but they just need a hit, a wink, and an elbow and a handshake to say, guys, we're going to go bomb this country and steal their stuff. Well, I don't know if that'd be good. We're doing it for a good reason. Oh, really? You're doing it for a good reason? And we're going to have a minority lead the charge. Well, in that case, let's go full steam ahead. Let's take their lithium. Let's bomb their people, overthrow their government. Why? Because we got a minority leading it. It is liberal interventionism. It is at the forefront. It is the latest iteration of liberal interventionism. This is how we do evil things. We call them good, and then we put a minority or some group, some protected class group person in charge of the evil deeds, and then we call them good deeds. That's the game. You know it, I know it, it's obvious. Now, if I call that out, if you call that out, you're a white supremacist. If you say, wait a minute, I'm not talking about anything opposed to the race of these particular people. I'm just saying, come on, I'm not stupid. You're using this person as a human shield. In fact, let's go one further. How are you helping black people? You're actually hurting black people to do that. You're hurting minorities. You're hurting trans people. You're hurting these groups to go forth and do all kinds of horrible, evil things and use one of their people to represent them as a class, as a group. This guy's representing all black people. What's he going to do? I kill a bunch of black people in Africa, dominate them, mistreat them, steal their stuff. Somebody might look at it and say, man, those black people are, hey, they're kind of rough around the edges there. No, he's rough around the edges. He's a sellout. But it doesn't benefit black people. Then let me add this. Native Americans. So you do this symbolic thing and you name Apaches and Tomahawks after them, but they get nothing out of the deal. So you can then argue that you're doing something for them because symbolically, are you helping the Native Americans? Absolutely. How? Well, symbolically speaking, we're naming all kinds of military weapons after them. Did they get anything out of it? Well, not really, but symbolically speaking, it's great. Kind of like building a statue to somebody after you kill them. What are you going to do? We're going to cut his throat. What are you going to do then? We're going to build a statue to him. That doesn't help him, does it? So what are you going to do? Make sure when you're doing nothing pretty much for the Native Americans, we stole everything they had, shoved them on a reservation, violated every treaty we ever made with them. We won't even spend enough money to give them running water like we do in the rest of the world. I mean, the rest of the county. Can you imagine a county outside of DC that didn't have running water? They'd make sure it had running water. But if it's a reservation full of Native Americans, they don't get no running water. But they do get some violent and vicious weapons named right after some of the very people that we used to genocide the Apaches. And so women, hey, we're standing up for women. How? Well, we got to steal the lithium in the people of South America. What about the women in the countries that you're actually stealing the lithium from? That's their job. Those are the natural resources of their nation. They have a right to the proceeds from that stuff. Instead, we steal it, we keep the proceeds, we put a woman out front, and we say, look at that, a woman is leading the charge. Really, the charge to do what? To rob the hell out of the people in South America. But of course, hey, look, it's a woman. That's the game. Most people already know it. But I just felt like, it pisses me off. I'm going to show you some pictures. All right, let's see. We are going to look and see if there's any super chats, and we're going to speak to our brethren and sisterin. How about that? We're going to speak to everybody. All right. Donald Sneed says, Garland, you have interviewed Dr. David Walu. I know him great. If not, he might be a good one. He's a friend of Scott Ritter, I believe. They met while working in government. I know Dr. David Walalu a lot of time, very, very well. I'm going to go on his channel soon, and I interview him regular on my radio shows. Good friend of him. Great guy. Love Dr. Walalu. I think it's called Geopolitics and Conflict, the channel. He's got a couple channels. I enjoy his channels, and he's a good guy. Follow David Walalu, everybody. I think it's called the Geopolitics and Conflict Show. I think it's worth watching. Definitely, it's good. Raphael Ligon says, "Gee, a serious question, bro. Is Putin suffering an inferiority complex? Is Putin a West lover? Do not understand the behavior by night for not fighting back. He's a reasonable person. Look, don't let somebody sucker you into a fight that you don't want to get into. Do what you came to do. He doesn't have to get drawn into a fight. He's not going to get suckered into a fight. He'll fight when he needs to fight. The man's a martial artist. He's a black belt. Understand it through the lens of martial arts, of the psychology of the philosophy of martial arts. You don't fight unless you have to. You don't fight unless you're backed into a corner. You don't just strike back because somebody then controls you. They say, if I hit, I know you'll hit. If I do this, you'll hit. I don't want any trouble. If you decide there's no way out, you got to fight. He's doing what he has to do, and he is winning. If you're winning, don't let somebody draw you off the mark. He's not going to get drawn off the mark. Things are going in the direction he wants them to go in, and the neocons want to draw him off the mark and force him to do something desperate. He ain't doing that. He's winning. What his plan is working. He's going to keep doing his plan. Let's keep looking. How about we go next to JG ALT 1776. Hey, Garland, do you think the regime would respond if Mexico sincerely worked towards joining BRICS? And they are. And they're going to try to do color revolutions in Mexico. It's just getting overwhelming. All the countries are leaving their orbit. Can you overthrow a color revolution every country and everywhere? That's the problem. They're getting overwhelmed. And Mexico's right on their border, elbowing them. And they're the ones saying, we're going to go to Mexico. We should attack Mexico. Mexico's like, you know what? Screw this, man. We'll do what we want. Woo, listening live. When will your store be available? Need help setting it up? Can't wait to see your recording studio. Yes, that's what I'm working on now. I'm meeting with a guy this weekend to set up a store, and I'm actually doing creating my LLC, which foolishly I hadn't done, and hopefully within the next week or so that'll be up, and then I'm going to work on getting my studio set up instead of sitting here in front of my stinking desk with a drone behind me, which I probably got to move that drone. The government's probably going to look, oh my God, he's got a drone. No, they're only scared of weather balloons, I guess. If I had a weather balloon now, that'd be it. There'd be a FBI SWAT team in tomorrow. Careful, Garland. You were one of 2 UTs on Fox. What's a UT? UT's at Fox, huh? I don't know. But I was at Fox. So, hey, I left out of Fox because I was done. All right. Kev Zinkhouse says, I have you on in the tattoo shop, Aberdeen, Scotland. Again, no dissent here. We love Garland in here. Keep up the great work. Hello to the tattoo shop in Aberdeen, Scotland. Kev's Zinkhouse. Hello, all. Keep up the good work. Thanks a lot, gang. I'm having fun, having a blast. Let's see. Anything else? We got it anymore. Dean Jones, super sticker. Thanks a lot, Dean Jones. And that's it. We're checking out Rockfin. We got some people on Rockfin that have something to say. Let's take a look. Thanks a lot, Hugh Griffin. Thanks a lot, Mark Grooms. That's the only 2 I see. All right. Thanks a lot, you all. Mark Grooms and Griffin. All right. Okay, everybody. Thank you very much. And I guess that means I am heading in the office, so I'm out. Heading for DC, my friends. Heading for DC. Make sure, once again, before I leave, a couple of things. Make sure you, I hope I didn't, I always screw around with Rockfin. I have such a time with that, figuring out what the hell's going on. But at any rate, bottom line, I might have ended it early. I don't know. I can't tell. Rockfin, I have a difficult time. Usually when I go over there, I think I accidentally end it. But okay, here's what I got to say. Thank you, everyone. If you can help the channel, we got patreon.com. Make sure we've got you follow me on Telegram. We've got Buy Me a Coffee is always great. If you don't like PayPal or Patreon, you can use Buy Me a Coffee. And now Buy Me a Coffee, actually, you can do just like Patreon and do the monthly thing on Buy Me a Coffee. So that's great. And of course, I've got my Cash App info. So any way you can help the channel is certainly appreciated. Additionally, you can become a member on Rockfin, no charge. Rockfin's great. You can become a member and you can see all of my stuff on Rockfin, no charge and no advertising. So Rockfin is great. However, the way Rockfin stays on the air, if you can afford it, become a member. You can become a subscriber for $14.99 a month. If you become a subscriber for a year, they give you a couple months free. It comes out to around $12. So you could, if you can afford that, thanks. Subscribers get every Wednesday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. I do a show with Scott Ritter that's subscriber only. So that's what you get. But the main thing is I certainly appreciate it if you can help keep Rockfin strong and keep the channel strong and become a subscriber. If you can't afford it, just keep your money. There's lots of other ways scrolling across there. You can help the channel if you can afford it. Thanks a lot, everybody. Bye.